Bonnie is the third and final member of the stunt show trio, along with Stu and her older sister Janet. For her act, she climbs into her trusty cannon named Clyde and blasts out of it like a human cannonball. She doesn't really care about her own safety, and she seems to always get into trouble, so I guess you could describe her as a loose cannon. She seems to be at the age where her baby teeth are coming loose because her cannonballs are tooth-shaped. Either that, or her teeth are just really taking a pounding from all these stunts.
Did someone say danger? Let's light this party up! Woo! It's Buddy and Clyde! Time to hide!
If you want to hear the rest of her voice lines and her pins, stick around to the end of the video and I'll play them all. Her cannon form's main attack is called Loose Tooth. While Bonnie's riding around in Clyde, she fires huge teeth one at a time, similar to Bee's main attack. It has a pretty great projectile speed, which makes it pretty easy to hit targets that are far away. While in her cannon form, her super is Star Launcher. When she activates this, Clyde blasts her into the air and she crashes down on the ground, damaging any targets nearby. Since she leaves Clyde behind, she then travels around on foot and is basically played like a totally different brawler. Her melee form's attack is Bomber Jacket. She flings a cluster of small grenades from her sleeves, and they get thrown out similar to like Bo's or Leon's main attack. This attack has a much shorter range than her cannon form, but it deals way more damage. Additionally, these cannonballs have a small blast radius, so each one can technically hit multiple targets if they happen to be close to each other. Her melee form super is called Clyde. For this super, she just climbs back into Clyde and changes into cannon form once again. It doesn't deal any damage or knock back anything, but she does recover a good chunk of health. Now, if she gets pulled or knocked back or pushed around while she's trying to use this ability, then her super will get interrupted and she'll remain in her melee form. However, Bonnie actually always spawns in her cannon form, whether she gets defeated or somebody scores a goal in Brawl Ball or the knockout round ends. So if she really wants to be in cannon form, I guess she could just die. Bonnie's first gadget is Sugar Rush. When she activates this gadget, Clyde's movement speed and reload speed are increased by 30% for 5 seconds. This makes it so that Clyde goes from a below average movement speed to above average movement speed, and his reload speed is significantly faster. Bonnie's second gadget is Crash Test. This gadget allows Bonnie to dash forward a short distance and knock back all targets in her way. It also deals 300 damage to each of those targets, which isn't much, but any damage is better than no damage. Unlike her first gadget, this gadget can only be used when she's in her melee mode. The dash is about the same distance as Shelly and Max can dash with their gadgets, so it's not very far, but it is very evasive and can be used offensively and defensively. Bonnie's first star power is Black Powder. This star power adds 36% more range to her super while she's in her cannon form. Here's a side-by-side comparison so you can see how much the range actually increases. This doesn't add any damage to the attack or increase the size of the blast radius. However, I still think this is going to be really useful on certain maps where extra range is important. Bonnie's second star power is Wisdom Tooth. With this star power equipped, each attack that Bonnie lands while in her cannon form will break off into smaller pieces that each deal 25% extra damage. They only break off if she hits a target, so walls will not break them up, but brawlers and their pets will. The pieces break off in an X pattern, but the patterned rotation depends on where the cannonball actually hits the target. So if it hits the target at a 45-degree angle, the extra pieces will break off in up, down, left, and right. And if the cannonball hits the target at a 90-degree angle, the extra pieces break off in a more diagonal direction. Bonnie's a little bit more complicated than most of the brawlers. This is kind of like 2 Olympics in one. We're going to show how good she is in each event from worst to best. But you know what isn't worst and is always the best? Using code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop. It's spelled Kairos, code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop. Woo! The Swarm Test. Bonnie starts by using 1 ammo to instantly take out a bot and then uses her super to switch out to her melee form while taking out 7 more bots. Unfortunately, the bots aren't close enough for her melee attacks to be able to do splash damage. However, each projectile is so strong she's able to destroy 3 bots with only 2 ammo. She defeats the swarm in 15.6 seconds, which puts her in 51st place and suggests that she's not going to be the best at dealing with multiple enemies at once. The Supercharge Test. While Bonnie's in her melee form, her super actually automatically charges up and does not speed up even if she hits enemies with her attack. It's kind of like Meg when she's in her mecha form. It takes exactly 16.7 seconds for her super to charge up in this form, so even though it constantly charges, she does have to wait quite a while before she can hop back into her cannon. In her cannon form, it takes 4 hits for her to charge her super, and she increases her time even more thanks to her first gadget. Bonnie can charge up her super in 3.7 seconds, which means that she ties with Grom for 46th place. The Box Test. Now, Bonnie doesn't get to use her melee mode in this test since brawlers aren't allowed to start with their supers charged. Her cannonballs can only hit 1 box at a time, but her Wisdom Tooth star power does deal a little extra damage to other boxes once she starts hitting bigger groups. She's also able to use all 3 of her gadgets after she collects a few power cubes, which really speeds her up. It takes her 54.5 seconds and she ties with 8-bit for 41st place. The Boss Test. Bonnie uses her gadget to charge up her super as fast as possible, then switches to her melee form. She stays in her melee form until her super recharges, and then switches back to her cannon form to repeat the process. This actually deals a lot more damage this way rather than just staying in her melee melee form because each time she switches to her melee form, all of her ammo is fully reloaded. Bonnie defeats the boss in 1 minute 2 seconds, which puts her in 40th place. The area test. I only allowed Bonnie to use 1 regular attack and 1 super for this test, and her cannon form definitely covers more area with both of those. Bonnie can't actually launch herself on top of the skulls, but her blast still destroys a good number of them. Her main attack covers 18 tiles and her super covers 25, which gives her a total score of 43 tiles, so she gets 33rd place. The splash test. Now, unlike the swarm test, the boxes in this test are close enough that each of Bonnie's attacks can hit multiple of them at a time while she's in her melee form. She uses her super to dive into the middle of the boxes and deal some damage to every box, and she's able to destroy all of the boxes right as her super charges, so she doesn't have time to switch back to her cannon form. She completes the splash test in 17.4 seconds and gets 32nd place. The super damage test. Bonnie deals 1,650 damage to every target that's inside her super blast radius. This also happens to be the exact same amount of damage as each one of her cannonballs deal, and since her melee form super doesn't deal any damage, she ends with a score of 1,650, and that gets her 31st place. Those were all the tests where Bonnie was worse than half of the brawlers in the game. Now let's talk about the ones she's better than over half of the brawlers in the game. But first, I'd really appreciate you guys subscribing onto my channel. I'm trying to reach 1 million subscribers by the end of this year, and at the rate we're going, I don't think we'll make it, so your support would be much appreciated. The attack range test. Bonnie's melee form can only reach across 5 tiles, but considering how strong she is, that's actually like pretty good. But her cannon form attack almost doubles that range, and she can hit 9 1/3 tiles away, which ties her with Lou and Fang for 22nd place. The survival test. Even though Bonnie does technically gain health when she switches to her cannon form, she actually gains just as much more health as her cannon form has than her melee form. So she doesn't actually heal, she just regains extra health. In other words, whether she stays in her cannon form this whole test or she switches forms, it doesn't actually really make a difference at all since she's not healing. That being said, her cannon form has 7,800 health, so she's able to survive 20.9 seconds, which puts her in 21st place. Bonnie actually has the 6th highest HP in the game, which is just insane for her range. The 1 second DPS test. As soon as Bonnie lands on the boss with her super, she's able to fire 2 full ammo before her 1 second is up. Between her super and her attacks, her max damage per second is 7,650 damage, which is enough for 19th place. The super range test. Now normally Bonnie's super only reaches 7 tiles away, but with the help of her black powder star power, she can launch herself 9 2/3 tiles away. Plus she has a blast radius of 2 2/3 tiles, which means that her total super range reaches 12 1/3 tiles, which puts her in 15th place for this test. The assassin test. Now this test is a little different because she has a full 3 seconds to deal as much damage as possible. So she fires a cannonball, then uses her super to switch forms, attack like crazy, and she's barely able to squeeze in 1 extra little bit of damage thanks to her gadget. Bonnie's able to deal 12,600 damage in 3 seconds, which puts her in 11th place and suggests that she is going to be great at assassinating her enemies. The 3 attack kill test. Bonnie can deal 4,950 damage with 3 cannonballs from her cannon form. That's enough to take out 28 brawlers, including Amber, Tara, Lou, Leon, and Max. That's pretty good, but in her melee form, she fires 3 projectiles that each deal 1,000 damage for each attack. So with 3 ammo, she's able to deal 9,000 damage, which is enough to take out every single brawler in the game, except for Frank. This ties her with Bull for 9th place. The reload test. Now, a big drawback to Bonnie's melee form is how slow her reload speed is. Unloading and reloading 10 shots takes her 23 seconds, which is only faster than about 7 other brawlers. That's really slow, but her cannon form reloads much faster and only holds up to 1 ammo at a time. Plus, her Sugar Rush gadget increases her reload speed even more, which you can see from this comparison right here. Bonnie finishes the reload speed in 12.4 seconds, which puts her in 7th place. And finally, we have Bonnie's best test, the race test. Now, Bonnie's one of the slowest brawlers in the game in her cannon form. She's just as slow as Surge, but before he upgrades it all. But her first gadget speeds her up, so she's actually faster than most brawlers in the game. But then she uses her super to give herself a huge launch ahead, switch to her melee form, which has a very fast movement speed, which is as fast as Crow or Mortis or Max, and then she's able to use 2 of her gadgets to dash her forward a short distance. Bonnie finishes the race in 8.3 seconds and ties with Nani for 6th, which is very impressive. So how good is Bonnie going to be? Well, Bonnie seems to have pretty much everything you need to be really great in gem grab, so I'm putting her in the S tier here. She's got good range, tons of health for carrying gems, an emergency escape, and a very effective way at assassinating enemies who are carrying gems. Whether she's up against long-range brawlers or close-range brawlers, she can hold her own pretty much everywhere, okay? And I can't think of a good reason reason why she should not be in the S tier. Honestly, she's just kind of a little bit overpowered overall, I think. So we're going to put her in the S tier here. But we're only putting her in the A tier for Brawl Ball. With how fast and strong her melee form, it's probably going to be great for Brawl Ball in general, but I think that it's going to start out a little bit slow until she charges up her first super and can actually swap to melee. Additionally, if she ever dies, she always respawns in her cannon form, which is slow, and that's not usually the best in Brawl Ball. But being able to launch herself up as far as she can, she's going to be able to make some pretty game-changing moves. Plus, if she's in her melee form and has her second gadget, she can use that to actually like get the ball out of enemy hands or push enemies out of the way so her teammates can score a goal. If she didn't have to spawn every single time in her cannon form, I would consider putting her in the S tier, but I think the A tier is better for this mode. But she's not going to be that great in heist. We're going to put her in the B tier, okay? Her melee form can absolutely wreck the enemy safe, but she's a little too squishy to be hanging around the enemy spawn in that form. And as for her cannon form, I don't think it's very good in heist at all, okay? It's really slow. The DPS is it's not the best, and she's really going to struggle to take out brawlers on her side of the spawn. Heist probably isn't going to be her best mode, but I still think she deserves at least the B tier just because of how good she is overall. And who knows, maybe there's a chance she'd actually be A tier in heist. But she's definitely A tier in bounty, okay? She doesn't have the best range, but her cannon can shoot far enough to where she can like kind of do fine against a lot of those meta bounty brawlers. Plus, once her super is charged, the enemy team is going to have to stay very far away until she uses it, because all it takes is just one good super to take out a brawler with a very high bounty. And if she's able to rack up a lot of bounty stars herself, her cannon form has tons of health, so it's not going to be very easy to take her out. I think Bonnie's just going to be good for bounty. She's not perfect, so I'll give her A tier, though there is a chance that she'll be S tier just because she like I said, she's just really strong overall. I'm also putting her in the A tier for hot zone, okay? She has just enough range to be just fine battling around the zone. Her Wisdom 2-star power is going to be great for this mode and is going to punish enemies that have more than one brawler in the zone at a time. And having a lot of health means that she's going to be pretty good at staying alive while in the zone. Plus, she can dive out in emergencies. She might be S tier overall for hot zone just because she's so good, but I think the A tier is a really good bet for her right now. But I absolutely think she's going to be an S tier brawler for knockout. She has the range to deal with pretty much any brawler until she's charged up her super. And once she has that super up, she's going to be able to target a brawler, super onto them, and take them out almost instantly in her melee form. She will definitely have to be careful when she uses that super because she doesn't want to get into a situation where she has to 1v3 the enemy team, but I think that she has a lot of potential if she's played right. I also think she's going to be S tier in solo showdown. Not many brawlers are going to be able to make as many sneaky plays on Bonnie early in the game because of how much health she has. Plus, once she charges up her super, I think it's going to be pretty easy for her to start picking out the enemy brawlers one by one, okay? She can use it to escape tricky situations, which is always great to have in solo showdown. Honestly, she's kind of like the better version of Edgar, and I think that she's going to be an S tier brawler in solo showdown. And duo showdown probably won't be any different, okay? Her super can hit multiple targets at once, and her gadget can bump 2 brawlers at once, which gives her teammates plenty of time to attack them. Even her Wisdom 2-star power will have some use here. I'd still probably rather play her in solo showdown, but if you prefer playing duo showdown, I think that she's going to be a solid choice here. That's it for everything I've got to say, but stick around if you want to hear all of her voice lines and see all of her pins.
Boom, boom, boom! Let's shake the room! Cannonball! Yippee! Look at all those explosions! Let's light this party up! It's Buddy and Clyde! Time to hide! I'm lit! I get knocked down, but I get up again. I'll be better next time. Time to bounce back. This is an occupational hazard. You kaboomed me?
We'll get them next time.
Haven't got time for this. You're gonna knock out another tooth. I'm telling Uncle Stu.
Watch out, Clyde! You okay, Clyde?
See you later. Don't mess with Clyde. I got you good. You can't hide from Bunny and Clyde. Looks like you could use a stunt double. Shots fired. I've got 2 words for you. Brush your teeth. Let's go on the highlight reel. Get it? Are you saying this? Adrenaline for the win. Adrenaline rush. Light the fuse. My greatest stunt yet. Check this out, Janet. Young and reckless coming through. My time, my show. Rolling out. Bunny and Clyde are going for a ride. Did someone say danger? Exciting.
We got this, Clyde.